In a world that entices us to browse through the lives of others to help us better determine how we feel about ourselves, and to in turn feel the need to be constantly visible, because visibility these days seems to somehow equate to success. Do not be afraid to disappear and to see what comes to you in the silence. This is from the acceptance speech of Othello Black Queen, Michaela Cole, during her Emmy acceptance speech yesterday. I needed to sit in that, and I need all of us to sit in that. The idea that being visible equates to success in a society that places a lot of emphasis on social media that requires visibility, and the measure of success is how much you are seen. But Michaela allows us to understand that the power and the success and actual real true sustenance comes from often knowing when it's time to disappear. Because when you disappear, there are things that come in that silence. You know, I always say, you don't talk about the things that are about to happen or the greatness that has happened until you've really obtained it. And there is a silence in holding it in to yourself before you share. You know, my dad always used to say, success is not measured by the views of others. Success is measured by what we value and determine as success. And that was during a time when social media wasn't as it is now. I wonder what my dad would say about how the majority views success. I need to also give flowers, and I don't feel like we've done it justice. Michaela Cole is an actress. She's a writer. She's a fellow Black queen, and she won an award yesterday. She was the first Black woman to win a writing Emmy, and her acceptance speech was perfect timing. When we talk about visibility and things like that, she is more recognized, I believe. And when I talk about recognition, we know what recognition means, because we often recognize and give flowers to people who die, but we don't often give it to them when they're alive. But she's getting more recognition across the pond in the States than she is here in the UK. And it's a shame that we do not recognize and see the success that is in front of us, but instead we determine it based on the visibility on social media, when actually what she has been able to do in her career has been to talk about things that make us uncomfortable in the most unique way. A voice of a Black woman taking center stage where often we don't get that opportunity. So Michaela Cole, if you ever get to listen to this podcast episode, or you ever stumble on the Toy Talks podcast, from one queen to another, thank you. Thank you for being all round amazing. Thank you for sharing your talent with us. And more importantly, thank you for standing 10 toes in what you believe in, your fearlessness and your courage and courageous way in which you do what you have been destined to do. So listen, this episode, God, the devil been working, honey. The devil been working. The devil been putting in that work. I just thank God Almighty for covering, for ensuring that I have the right people around me, but more importantly, that my purpose is very clear to me. And often I think as human beings, we take for granted certain things because that's what we do as humans. And sometimes the ancestors just have a way of reminding you how beautiful it is when you realise your purpose and sit in your greatness. But also we don't talk about how to protect that greatness and how to protect what others see in you that you may not see in yourself. I definitely feel as though the last few months have been really challenging, especially the last couple of weeks. And I'm not even going to lie to you. I feel like I'm being tested more than usual. And it's an uncomfortable feeling to feel that way, because I guess the way my energy is at the moment is more about focusing on what makes me happy and understanding the importance of centering myself and self-caring. I think it's important that we are honest with ourselves and recognize our flaws, because I feel like a lot of people who look in the mirror don't really see themselves. They just look to look, but you don't really look inwardly. And audacity is at an all-time high. Excuse me. Audacity is running laps. And I definitely feel that as we're going into the colder months and cuffing season, people are losing their minds. So I'm going to implore people to please switch your heaters on so that heat can be transmitted in your body, so your brain can kickstart from neutral into gear 1, because some people are mad. I was in a clubhouse room, as I usually am. I'll just sit on the stages and listen. And yeah, you know, sometimes I like those messy rooms and I'm just literally a spectator. But in a particular room, they were talking about Britain and, you know, the idea that in our lifetime, the US justice system is trying to serve Prince Andrew, the Queen's son, with papers, legal papers, and he has managed to dodge this. And there has been no push by the lawmakers of this country to ensure that Prince Andrew, I hope I said Andrew because it's not Philip, it's Prince Andrew, that Prince Andrew actually helps the FBI and actually attends court. And all that is white privilege. That's all that is. Because if it was a black man that needed to be served papers, the UK would shake the hands of the US and extradite that person, forgetting all about human rights and all the rest of it. Until we openly discuss racism, until we have those uncomfortable discussions with white people who are benefiting from the racist structures of their forefathers, until we are willing, and until racist white people are willing to have these difficult conversations, racism will continue. Britain's greatest export is racism. And when I was in that clubhouse room, they were having discussions, and they said, racism is sewn so much into the fabric of society that white people claim to not even know what racism is. And the reason why they are ignorant to it is because it is part of the fabric of the society that their forefathers have created. So they're not seeing it. Number one, they're not on the other end of it. Number two, it benefits them. But that's all they know is that black people are not even second or third class citizens. They don't recognize us, some of them, the racist ones. When you think about the greatest export being racism in this country, I think the way to contextualize it is they don't want to talk about colonization. They don't want to talk about slavery. They don't want to talk about mental slavery. They don't want to talk about the structures that continue to encourage and keep racism alive. Because they're happy that as long as they have enough influence, change is slow. I've called this podcast episode Closet Racist because people tend to think that racism is when somebody uses the N-word or is overtly discriminatory. But the reason why racism is the greatest export in the UK is they've managed to keep it under the radar. And when I say under the radar, it's the type of racism that white people will say is open to interpretation. But as black people, we know exactly what racism feels like and what racism is. So it's really difficult for me to accept when a white person tells me something isn't racist. How do you know? You are a white person who has never and will never experience racism, because it is impossible for black people to be racist against white people, because in order for racism to exist, there needs to be an uneven power structure, and the uneven power structure is not levied towards us, it's towards white people. And I'm not going to bore you with like the intricate details of racism. There is Google, there are books. Akala, in a couple of his books, breaks down societal racism in a way that I feel needs to be spoken about. But again, it's for black people to educate white people about racism. And then when we do, then we get gaslit, or we get accused of being too sensitive, or we get told, no, that's a thing of the past. How can a white person tell me that racism doesn't exist when they've never actually experienced it to know if it does exist? We are on the end of it, so we get to tell you as black people, this is racism and the reasons why. You guys will recall in a previous podcast episode, it's not that I don't know where to start, it's the fact that I have to unpack this here. So if you listen to No Caller ID and really understand what I'm saying here, saying in that episode, you will understand that for the last couple of weeks, I've basically been. It's difficult for me to say it because I've been bullied, victimized, racially discriminated against, and discriminated against on the basis of my gender. A quick recap. So, as part of my role, I'm a consultant. I manage contracts. That's what I do for a living. That's what I've done for almost, I think, 8-9 years now. And as part of my role, I manage multi-million pound contracts, right? So you guys know that I've worked for like Goldman Sachs. I've worked for many organisations. Go on my website, toytalks.com. There's a whole list of them. So as part of my role, I'm managing and consulting this organisation. There are a few subdivisions of where I work that are piggybacking off my contract. Now, when you are going into BAU, so you've gone from a project to now you're going to business as usual, and you're handing the project back to, say, the sponsor or whoever it is, you need to do it clean. So it's part of my due diligence, if you like. I have to make sure that no one is piggybacking off my contract, that we found them an alternative way of contracting. So I had done a favour for this particular team, and I'd given them 6 months to find an alternative. So quite rightly, on my contract, the supplier said to me, Toya, we've helped you out. That team needs to find an alternative. So I went back to that team. I said, hi, this is the situation. They came back as one of the team members and said, oh, Toya, thank you. What you did is you saved us. You really went the extra mile. We're going to discuss, etc., etc. Long story short, the team leader of that team reaches out to me and basically was quite abusive. He said that I was being judgmental. He accused me of a lack of understanding and communication. He berated me. And nothing I said was judgmental because all factual. I stuck to the facts. I've got no reason to be judgmental. Do you understand? This is not my father's company. This is a job that pays really well for something I'm really good at. And I'm a consultant. It's transactional. It's not personal. Then, as he's saying this to me, I've gone back and I've said, there's nothing I'm saying that's judgmental here. It's been 6 months and that was the arrangement. And I'm also being pressed by the supplier to kind of find a solution to this. Then he sends me an email and cuts everybody else out, and he sends me a personal email. And he says to me, in this personal email, he said, I'm sending you this personally and not sharing it with others who are involved. And he said basically that he found that my email does not reflect well on me and appears that I'm very judgmental towards his team, and that he thinks it would be good practice that I think before sending an email. This is all written down. Now, to give you a bit more context, I've never spoken to this man before. I don't know his voice. I don't know what he looks like. He's never seen me before. All he has is my name. Yeah. And my name, you know, I'm African. For those of you who do not know, I actually have a double barrel name. He knows that he can tell I'm African. He can sure as hell has a good guess that I'm black, and he knows I'm a woman. That's the only information that he has to hand. And then he said that he politely suggests that moving forward, I'm a bit more careful with my words. And then he goes on and goes on. Now, remember, this is an email where he's cut everybody else out and he's just sent it to me. That is called victimization. He is centering me. He's isolating me. I'm doing my job. I've contacted his team. You can see from the email trails, they're very complimentary of me. But here we are. So I replied back to him. And on the reply, I put my head of department, so the director. I put another director on, my colleague who works with me. And I basically said to him, my emails have been in no way judgmental. I said, what I provided was an interim solution for 6 months. It's now nearing 6 months, and quite rightly, I need to ask what the onward and forward plan is. And I've been very supportive of your team, but in being supportive, I also have to be accountable for the management of this contract. I then referenced his email, and then I asked him to refrain from making personal opinions of me. And I said to him, my sole role is to find a solution here. Very professional. I did tell him that the last line of his email reads like a threat, because the last line of the email, he basically says, if I continue with this haphazard communication, then he will ignore me. And I said to him that because of the threat, I'm opening the email to a wider audience. And that if he does it again, then I'm going to make a grievance complaint to human resources. He then replies all, and he basically says, if I felt that he was threatening me, he can apologise, but his comments remain. So let's take this step by step. So you're offering to apologise. I learn from white people every day, okay? You offer to apologise, can you imagine? But whatever it is you're offering to apologise for, you still stand by what you say. So that's a bit of an oxymoron. Are you apologising or are you not? Like, what are we doing here? And he was very aggressive in his email, basically said what he said. I could do what I like. And he basically said that actually within the email. He said, if you can go to HR if you would like. I ignored his email. Now, the reason I ignored his email is because I've put you on notice that your behaviour is unacceptable. And I've given you and drawn references to why it's unacceptable. And I've told you the consequence if you do it again. So your email back to me should be, I apologise, or just ignore it. What it shouldn't be is you reiterating and standing by your stupidity and standing by your violence. But we move. He did reference within his email to me, before he kind of siloed me out in that email, that he is on leave and will be back in a week's time. So I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to go back to his team when he gets back, and I might even get my colleague to do it, because clearly this man has a chip on his shoulder. Little did I know that during his time off, he wrote an email to my colleague. Let me read it. Hi Sarah, thanks for checking me out on LinkedIn. Are you Toya's line manager by any chance? I cannot stress how appalled I and others have been at her critical and uneducated communication towards my team. and yet I'm the one on the end of a threat to take me to HR. Is this her normal style of communication, and how can we resolve this situation? I would also like somebody to remind Toya that it isn't her contract, it's ours, all of us. Just to give you guys some context, Sarah had gone on LinkedIn on her own fruition because she was so appalled by his emails to me that she wanted to put a face to the name. She wanted to understand who would have the gall and the audacity to write such abusive emails and then single me out and write an email to me in which then I replied and put my boss on, her on copy, and another director on copy. She wanted to understand. And I think that's fair enough. I don't judge her for that. In his email to her, he emailed her why he was off. So that means that he was fully committed in his bullish ways. He wanted to bully me. He wanted to recruit Sarah as an ally. He didn't even wait for her to confirm or deny whether she was my line manager or not. He was solely committed in continuing his tyranny of bullying and discrediting me and my character. What I didn't know is that week that he was off, that he'd sent this to Sarah. I didn't know until later on in the week because Sarah was so disgusted. She was waiting for an opportunity to tell my boss. She was trying to get a meeting in the diary. And there was one day that I'd taken some time off. And coincidentally, Sarah then said to my boss, Deborah, I need you to call me. It's urgent. This is what she told me. So then my boss called her and Sarah said, you need to read your emails and then I'm going to forward you something. And my boss was livid. In fact, Sarah says my boss was so angry and so appalled by what she saw. She was swearing, and my boss does not swear. Sarah then called me on my mobile and she said, Toya, I didn't deliberately keep this from you. I just didn't want to infuriate you or infuriate the situation. I've spoken to Deborah and I'm forwarding you this. So when I read it, I said to myself, okay, I put this man on notice. He came back, he called me uneducated. There wasn't anything that this man did not say to me. This is somebody who I've never spoken to before. These are all email communications. All email communications. I credit white people, racist, belligerent white people, with a thinking faculty that they know how to work the system for their benefit. I have never worked anywhere where a racist white person is so free to put everything on an email. So it's not my word against his. The evidence speaks for itself. The act of singling me out and sending me an email, cutting everybody out to further bully and discredit me, and then you go and reach out to one of my colleagues to do the same thing. I'm going to read to you my grievance complaint and then we're going to talk about it. This grievance complaint, I entitled it Formal Grievance Complaint, Ronald McDonald. I'm going to also tell you guys, I copied him, I put him on CC. Yes, he chose violence. So I'm going to respond with violence, but I'm going to respond in a professional violence. You deserve to see the grievance complaint levied against you because I put you on notice. I said, if you continue, this is what I'm going to do. It wasn't a threat. It was notice. He continued. Good evening, Human Resources. Please accept my apologies in sending this email to you so late. However, my insomnia caused by the anxiety of this situation has meant that I've had to take leave from work the last 2 days because of the anxiety and stress caused by Ronald. On the 26th of August 2021, email attached. I put Ronald on notice that should he continue his personal attacks on my character, I will have no choice but to make a formal grievance complaint to Human Resources. His email reply was flippant, with a complete disregard for human resources, and what I was requesting, he refrained from doing. Please do contact HR if you feel the need to. That was me referencing him. This was contained in his email reply, which I ignored. This, however, later on that same day, email attached, Ronald decided to continue his crusade to bully, discredit and attack my character by emailing my colleague, whom he assumed was my line manager, and without seeking confirmation, he continued. His comments are derogatory and disgraceful. Despite my email to him to refrain from his behaviour, his commitment to bullying me was too much of an opportunity for him to pass up, and his email attached is both unprofessional and a disgraceful act of harassment and bullying. Based on this and the email thread attached, I have had no choice but to safeguard my mental health and work environment by making a formal grievance complaint against Ronald McDonald on the following grounds. 1. Bullying. 2. Harassment. 3. Victimisation. 4. Sex discrimination. 5. Race discrimination. And 6. Bullying by coercion. I must make clear, I have never spoken to Ronald on the phone or via video conference call. All communication with Ronald has solely been via email, and all these emails have been attached to this grievance complaint, which I will also use as evidence in my claims. What is clear to Ronald is that I am a woman, and of course my name, which is very clearly not an English name, but an African name. I am a black woman of African descent. Bullying. So I headed it, bullying. My emails to Ronald are factual, and I have clearly explained why I am seeking a status update. The catalyst to my questions and the history of what happened in securing a temporary contractual solution. Nothing in my email is judgmental because they are factual and evidenced in my email, specifically the email dated the 26th of August at 2:32. Ronald's response was aggressive, and in his pursuit of bullying me, he decided to send me a personal email excluding the audience, laced with threats and microaggressions, accusing me of being judgmental and stating I lack communication skills, and as a punishment he will ignore me. Knowing fully well that this threat would make my job difficult and unable to effectively manage my contract and the supply relationship with regards to him piggybacking off my contract. His comment demanding I consider my words carefully reads as a threat, again, to further bully me, as it appears Ronald does not like being questioned, and when he is questioned, he resorts to personal email attacks, dropping out the audience from the email to personally attack and intimidate me during my execution of my role. Harassment. Harassment is unwanted behaviour which you find offensive or which makes you feel intimidated or humiliated. I made clear to Ronald in my last email, dated the 26th of August at 2:32, that his behaviour was unwanted, and I requested he refrain from his behaviour as I found them offensive. This was made clear to him. His reply was a continuation of this, and he made clear that he stands by his behaviour and very clearly would continue, as seen in his subsequent email to my colleague Sarah, in which he attacked my character, humiliated me before my colleague, and used his position to continue his agenda to destroy and discredit me. His comments in his email are derogatory and personal, and has led me to consider the reasons for this, which I will address under the racial and sex discrimination heading of this email. Victimisation. Ronald singled me out by ensuring no one was on copy and continued to threaten, attack my character and humiliate me. He then further attacked me to my colleague, calling me uneducated and further attacking my character, singling me out to bully me to ensure I knew my place. Please note from the email chain, Ronald makes clear he is on leave from the 6th of September. Yet Ronald still found the time and the opportunity whilst on leave to further victimise me in his email to my colleague Sarah, the result of which would make me and anyone else on the receiving end of these emails uncomfortable and intimidated. As a result, I have had extreme anxiety and have been uncomfortable and anxious. in victimizing me, this was Ronald's goal. Sex discrimination. As I've previously mentioned, I have never spoken to Ronald on the phone or via video conferencing call. All communication with Ronald has solely been via email. The question remains, why? Why has Ronald decided to operate in this manner? All that would be available to him is my gender and my name. Ronald references me as her in his email to Sarah, and therefore he knows I am female. I have to consider that his behaviour is motivated and rooted in discrimination. The difference between myself and Ronald is that he is a white man and I am a black woman. His behaviour is unreasonable, irrational, and aggressive in a way that is so personal. His sustained attacks have been relentless despite me putting him on notice of his continued behaviour without remorse or restraint. If I were a man, would he have treated me like this? And based on the email exchanges, my answer is no. Therefore, I believe that Ronald has treated me in a disadvantageous way and victimised and bullied me on the basis of my gender. For his emails to be so personal, I must consider that my gender, which is clearly known to him, is a key factor in his treatment of me. Racial discrimination. It is often assumed that in order to be racially discriminated against, someone must have used racially discriminatory words which are therefore overtly racist. This is not only the case in which racial discrimination is present. Racial discrimination can be overt and evidenced in disadvantageous behaviour and treatment. I will therefore use my colleague Sarah as a comparator, who is what is clear is that Sarah is a woman, a white woman, and her surname reads as an English name. His tone of email and treatment to her in his email is completely different. He then falls back into his behaviour when he mentions me, all without knowing if the person he is writing to is indeed my line manager. The only clear differences between myself and Sarah are our race, which can clearly and reasonably be inferred by our names. Therefore, his treatment of her more favourably, because he assumes from what he knows, is that she is not a black woman, which of course I am. My answer is yes. I am being discriminated against on the basis of my race. Taking into consideration all the attached emails, that again, Ronald's assumption of me being uneducated is rooted in sex discrimination and racial discrimination. Is Ronald's assuming that being a black woman, that I cannot possibly be educated? This is rooted in his personal racial stereotype, which is pervasive in his emails. His assumptions are baseless, given that I am a law degree holder, I've gone to law school and completed my legal practice course, and a master's holder in addition to a SIPS diploma. I have been a commercial contract consultant in total for almost 10 years, and my CV speaks for itself. His email to Sarah is shameful and discredits me, and he has done so on the basis of my race and his racial prejudice. Bullying by coercion. In sending the email attached to Sarah, he sought to recruit her as an ally to use her to bully me. He did not know if Sarah was my line manager. He made an assumption, and on the basis of that assumption, he placed Sarah in an awful position. Ronald used the same style of bullying he used with me by sending her a direct email excluding anyone else from the thread based on an assumption. However, in this instance, he sought to coerce Sarah into bullying me by asking her to remind me. Again, this reads as a threat. We have seen an earlier email from Ronald where a threat has been levied against me. But here his email is as if to imply I am cognitively impaired. This is very clearly linked to Ronald's flawed racially motivated stereotype of me being uneducated. Lastly, I would like my grievance complaint against Ronald McDonald and the submission of all emails to support my complaint fully investigated. I've previously ignored Ronald, but I put him on notice of his behaviour and conduct, and what is clear is that Ronald is relentless, and I must stand up to bullies who use my race and gender as a weapon to victimise and bully me. His behaviour must be stopped, and it is my responsibility to ensure I speak up. This organisation have made it clear that they have a duty of care to all staff to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable. My experience over the last 2 weeks has been far from this. My work on this project and my relationships with both my internal and external stakeholders speaks for itself. I pride myself on my character and integrity. I can evidence my successes on this project. Despite the pressure and the workload, I show up, work hard, and treat everybody with respect and professionalism. I pride myself on delivering in this role that I have been contracted to do. I would also like to thank my line manager, Deborah, for her support in ensuring my well-being is safeguarded. The last 2 days have been tough, but I've taken time off to work through my anxiety and prioritise my mental health. I'll be returning back to work tomorrow. I look forward to hearing from you. Kind regards, Toya. The reason why I have broken this out to you is because this is how your grievance complaint needs to be. It needs to be clear and succinct. You have to make it very clear early on what you are doing. And I make it clear. I am making a formal grievance complaint based on bullying, harassment, victimisation, sex discrimination, race discrimination, and bullying by coercion. Education. Education is everything. Because when Ronald saw me, he was thinking, oh, look at this black person. If he based his treatment on me on the stereotype he has against black people, moreover, a black woman, I put him on copy because I chose violence, because he basically said to me, up yours. I said, really? We're going to go up to yours then. I'm going to meet you where you are. This English, I'm going to show you that I even know it better than you, because we've had to know it better than them. You want to bully me? You want to victimize me? You want to discriminate against me? See, these microaggressions, they need to be called out. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. There is an anxiety I felt having to deal with this. Listen, one thing with me, I will avoid problem like the plague. I avoid it. But if you step on my toe, I will tell you ouch and I'll kick you in your ankle. Don't play with me. I am a black activist. Little did he know that he was stepping on the toes of a highly educated black woman that teaches, educates, and guides black women how to navigate the world of work and in turn light up the path of their success. He picked the wrong one on the right day. I sent this email around 11 p.m. just to let the recipients know homegirl ain't sleeping. Yes. Do you remember that episode we have about framing? Go and listen to it. This is the only language they understand. And you think it was a coincidence that I CC'd Ronald? No. You need to feel constipated. You need to have diarrhea at the same time. You need to have bellyache. You're going to read this. I'm going to put it to you. When he read this, he did not sit down. He was up and going. I'm telling you that this man was constipated. He probably vomited. Because what he did was he put himself in a position whereby nobody's asking me my word against his. You're not even going there. You just need to read the emails. They are disgusting. And what gave you earlier was high level of what he's saying. There was one email where he refers to me as stupid. Yes, there is one of those. This man was sending emails so thick and fast that by the time I put him on notice of the repercussions, he'd already sent about 4 or 5 emails. Sometimes, no matter how much you try to avoid it, sometimes you have to meet them where they are. Because this man is relentless. You know how racist bullies operate? They will wear you down, they will grind you down, and they will gaslight you. Imagine somebody offering to apologize. You either apologize or you don't. Do you understand? You don't say, oh, would you like me to apologize? What kind of bullshit is that? Oh, there's more. When HR received this, they didn't know what to do with themselves. Remember, I'm a consultant, but I contract directly with them. I don't go through an intermediary. That's how we're set up over here. This organization I'm working for, they wanted a subject matter expert. I'm here. But I don't lose my identity because I'm working somewhere. I don't lose my identity because I get paid. No, you're not going to dehumanize me because I'm making money. Who said that making money has to always be loaded with tears? God forbid, bad thing, back to sender. Ronald really thought that he was something. You see these middle class, white, arrogant, racist people. Their tyranny that they're doing is because, I'm telling you, this Ronald has done this before several times. And what will probably happen is these people will leave. Let's be honest. Who's really going to take this shit? You've gone out of your way. You didn't even ask if this colleague is the line manager. You assumed. You asked the question and still had time to abuse me all during your time off. Do you know how mad that is? Do you know how crazy? When I sent it to HR, I sent it to the director of HR. Don't play with me. Before I sent it to HR, I'd spoken to my boss. I said, listen, this is what I'm going to do. Because it's gone too far. I know you want to talk to him and da-da-da. That's all well and good. But this needs to go on his record. There needs to be a record of his behaviour. Maybe because he's a perm member of staff, so he thinks that the rules don't apply to him. He can see that I'm a consultant, so he thinks he can use me like a football. Well, if you're going to use me like a football, you've scored an own goal. And your own goal now is with HR. My boss said, Toya, I respect anything you want to do because, to be honest with you, I've never seen anything like this on this project. I don't know who behaves like this. This is like an animal. I said, well, even an animal needs to be controlled. So let's do this. So I sent it. Do you know that when I sent it at 11 o'clock at night, by midnight, my boss emailed me. She emailed me directly. She said, Toya, I'm going to call you in the morning. The next morning, she called me. She said, Toya, listen, I have not read something so succinct like this in a long, long time. It caused me to go through all the emails he had sent that you had referenced. And I'm sorry, this is open and shut. I don't know how somebody can be so stupid to think that he could get away with this. A senior consultant that he's doing this to. I said, don't worry. Don't worry. This then was acknowledged by HR. And HR have been shitting themselves. They don't know what to do. Because what are you going to say to me? It didn't happen. Or I'm sensitive. Or open to interpretation. You can't tell me that. Because I reiterated, I've never spoken to this man. This is all via email. And I'm using all the emails as evidence to support all my claims here. I deliberately didn't write in the grievance complaint what outcome I'm seeking. And do you know why? Because I wanted HR to sweat. I did. Because at some point, they're going to have to make a decision. Do we suspend him? Do we do this? Do we do this? If I tell them what the outcome is, they don't spend enough time sweating and actually going with a fine-tooth comb over the emails. I wanted to put everybody on a tightrope. Yes. You're not going to stop me during the execution of my job because of white privilege. Sorry. White privilege stinks over here. We're not going to have that. HR then write to me to tell me they acknowledge my grievance complaint. They want to put time in the diary. So the director of HR put time in the diary. She said, oh, I just want to check on you, make sure you're okay. All of that, song and dancing. Because duty of care, Abby. So she was doing it on a roundabout way. She said, so what do you think it would be the most suitable outcome? I said, well, let me put you on notice. I'm sure you're writing this down, because I am. I know that Ronald hasn't been suspended pending investigation. So that either means that you're not taking this seriously or you're not aware of your own HR policy when it comes to grievances. So I need that explained. She didn't say anything. She just went quiet. I made a note of it. I said, as far as I'm concerned, this is formal. I wrote that in the subject box. So why you're asking me what outcome I'm seeking, that I'm wondering what process you're using, because I've told you it's formal. She said, okay, but there is a formal. So we have two types of formal. So a formal investigation will be like you've done the grievance complaint, you'll copy in the evidence or whatever, and then we'll look into it. And there's one where we take an independent investigator to come in and interview. I said, they're not going to interview me because everything is in email. They don't need to talk to me. If they want to talk to him, that's up to them, because obviously he has to answer for his behavior. I don't have to answer for his behavior. I said, listen, I want a formal retraction. I said, because the disrespect has to match the retraction. So I need it in an email. This is not verbal. I want a formal retraction of each discrediting inference, reference to my character. And I want an unequivocal apology. I also want a formal apology to my colleague because he put her in an uncomfortable situation and actually could have contaminated my work relationship with her. I said, thirdly, he needs to go on a course that you guys need to pay for. Equal opportunity and racial discrimination awareness. You guys have those courses. He needs to go on that intensive course. I said, thirdly, it needs to go on his record. She said, his record? I said, yes, it must enter the record. Because this sustained attack shows me that it's not his first time here. He's done this before and got away with it. And he's doing it again and again because there's no repercussions. And it needs to be on record. So next time he does it to somebody, you guys are able to go to your record and see that there's a pattern of behavior here that is accelerating at a rapid speed. So I said, okay, Toya, in one of his emails to you, he did offer to apologize. I said, sorry? She repeated it. Remember, this is HR. I told you HR's in the bin. I've always told you guys. Even in black and white, they will still gaslight you. I said to her, when you go to the shops, She said, yes. I said, where do you like to shop? She said, I like to go to Waitrose. I said, okay. I said, when you go to Waitrose, have you ever had a situation where you bump into somebody with your trolley, or maybe you're going to a particular shelf, you bump into somebody? She said, yeah, it happens all the time, especially, this pandemic. I said, oh. So when you bump into them, what happens? She goes, I say so. I said, no, finish. She said, I say sorry. I said, oh. Do you offer to say sorry, or do you just say sorry? She goes, I don't offer, I just say sorry. I said, you get the point? I said, sincerity goes a long way. When somebody offers to apologize, number one, I don't understand the offering. You either do it or you don't. But to continue to then say you stand by what you said, one has to question the sincerity of this apology that you're offering that has not arrived. I said, because when you work in a professional environment, there is a professional standard that one expects during the course of your job as a professional. And that is that when you have done something wrong, you own up. Apology means, oh, this was an accident, or apology means it won't happen again. It's a retraction of the behavior in which you're apologizing for. I said, please, do not gaslight me that he offered to apologize. Because after he offered to apologize, he then sent my colleague an email and called me uneducated. Who is uneducated? Me? What is that based on? My gender? My race? How does he know whether I'm educated or not? I said, what has education got to do with this discussion? This email, what's education got to do other than laced in racial stereotype? I said, it's aggressive, it's humiliating, it's dehumanizing. I said, it's unacceptable. I said, you guys keep sending all these bulletins. I attached the bulletin to my grievance complaint. The bulletin about racial discrimination and feeling comfortable in the workplace. I'm telling you that I'm not. But you're not willing to hold him to account because he apologized. I said, the apology doesn't mean anything. I said, if these 4 things are not done, then we're going down the formal route. I'm quite happy to have an independent investigator. I'm very happy to go down that route. Because there needs to be accountability. You cannot discriminate against anybody based on anything and think that you will not be accountable for your behavior. No. I said, and in speaking up, I'm standing up to people like him. Because a lot of places believe that this performative standing up is what counts. No. It's when you have to stand by the pledges that you make to your employees or your consultants. When you have to stand by it, that's when we see who is really actually advocating for getting rid of this type of behavior and who is actually facilitating it. She said, okay, Toya, well, I've heard everything you have to say and I take it. Please give me 24 hours. 24 hours. She said to me, if I want to make a formal complaint, that I need to press something in the portal and write it there. I said, no. I've told you what I want. I'm not going to write anymore. I've written it. I've told you what I want. It's non-negotiable. So they are having a meeting with him this week to tell him exactly what I want and the consequence of it not happening. And then we take it from there. I'll keep you guys updated. Listen, let me make something clear to you. When you're working in organizations, I've told you, there's three at least, and I say at least, 3 defining career moments of your life. This is my second one. And the reason why it's career defining is because whenever you have to literally take on the organization, because this is what I'm doing, I'm asking them to hold somebody to account for the claims that I have made. It takes a lot, because I'm telling you what they will do is they now have to go and speak to their lawyers because they know where this can go. They need to also do, I'm sure they spoke to my colleagues. I'm a very credible character. And they've looked at it and they said, this is a tough shit. But they don't necessarily think I'm going to take it all the way until that meeting. She now knows I'm going to take it all the way. I'll take it where it needs to go. I'm not in the business of getting people sacked. I don't, listen, there's no comfort I get from getting people sacked. That's why I put him on copy, because we are going to use this as a teachable moment. The reality is, as far as I'm concerned, nobody can oust me out of my job. It's not possible. A job that God has ordained for me. You're crazy. I report you to my ancestors, they would do it too. But what you're not going to do is make me uncomfortable during the execution of my job because you are a racist. That's not going to happen. I need you guys to understand that there comes a point whereby a grievance complaint is required, because that's the only language they will understand. That's the documented evidence of your grievance. They need it. It needs to be clear, succinct, straight to the point. You didn't hear me talking about I grew up in Tottenham and I had a hard life, and then I decided to, turn my life around and not be a product of my environment. And then because I'm not a product of my environment, I worked hard. My father and my mother, they sacrificed. I've been educated, and because I'm educated, who cares about this story? You think these people care? These people don't give a shit. What they understand is professional verbal violence. Education is gold. Education is gold. And the best thing my parents ever gave to me was access to education. Even if it wasn't the best in the world, it was just the access to it. I'm talking to you as somebody who's a learning disability. I'm dyslexic. But when I write, if you force me in a corner and I'm writing, I read it to you guys. Don't try me. Don't try me. This is why I avoid problem. Because when I face you, when I've decided that we're going to go to war, I will be standing at the top of the hill. You will be crushed at the bottom. Don't try it with me. These people, HR, I've told you, HR are human resources, but they're not resourcing the humans. They're not resourcing us. They advocate and support the organization. They don't give a shit about you. When they were talking to their lawyers, they weren't talking to their lawyers saying, I'm so worried that this happened to Toya. How can we support her? Oh, what they were saying is, she has a claim here. Please, can you rate this on a risk of 1 to 10? The likelihood of success. I'm telling you, I'm talking to you as somebody who's a part qualified lawyer. I know exactly what they were talking about. One of my specialist areas was housing law, employment law, child law, family law. Don't try it. I understand these things. I know exactly what they were doing. After all, have I not advised as a consultant for human resources when they do their madness in past organizations? So I know the conversations that we're having. And the way this man has done himself in is, even if he says I'm not this and I'm not this, he has to justify to them, why did you call her uneducated? Why did you call her stupid? Why did you send these emails during your time off? Why did you continue? When she told you to stop, why did you continue? All these questions. They're going to be asking him, levied against him. I'm telling you, this man has not slept since I submitted that grievance complaint. I put him on copy. Yes, listen, you see one thing with me. When I warn you to back off and you refuse to back off and I back on, you're fucked. You're just swimming on a bicycle. You're done out here. And I'm going to tell you something. This man will never see my face. No. Do you know whose face he's going to see? Even though HR are made aware of what I want, HR are going to get my boss to tell him. Because they told me that's their normal way. And my boss is a mixed race woman, black person, is going to have the shock of his life. Don't you think? This is the same boss who I put on CC when he excluded everybody out of the email, but he didn't pick anybody else but Sarah. Do you know why he wrote to Sarah? Imagine, he sent me an email, just me, and then I reply and I put my boss, the director, and my colleague. But he chose my colleague because she has a white sounding name. That's why he chose her. After all, why didn't he assume anybody else? Okay, somebody will say, okay, maybe because of LinkedIn, but he didn't even ask the question. He assumed because he knew this is a white name. Oh, I didn't even write that one in a complaint. I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting. You listen. One thing is I always have something in my back pocket. You'll have to explain that. When she copied everybody in, if you wasn't sure who her manager was, then you should have sent an email to each one of them then, if that's the case. Or at least allow somebody to answer you back. Do you know what it is to call somebody uneducated? Do you know how personal that is? Uneducated. Are you talking to me or the person in your mind who did you wrong? Listen, there is such thing as closet racists. When I told my mother-in-law about this, she said, this is a closet racist. They come out with their briefcase and that their dusty, rusty beard and their expanding nose hairs. They will speak the Queen's English as they continue to protect racism. They will sit there in front of you on the train. They'll walk past you on the street and you think they're normal. Being a racist is not normal behavior. I'm sorry. In a multicultural society that we're living in, racism is a sickness. It's a sickness. And I have the antidote if you try me. Imagine having anxiety knowing that you're going to have to deal with this person. Knowing that I'm going to have to invest energy in drafting a grievance complaint. Do you know that it takes time because you're going to have to unpack stuff to deal with it? It's exhausting. I'm going to put my hands up. Yes, the man tried to bully me. That's what he did. He tried to victimize me. It was harassment. Yes. I'm going to put my hand up and say yes. It doesn't make... Listen, when you say how somebody has made you feel or somebody has done something, it doesn't make you weak. Speaking up and advocating for yourself is your greatest opportunity to address bullshit, violence, and damn right unprofessionalism. Racist white men have gotten away with this for far too long. Far, far too long. Because their forefathers told them that they're the owners of the vineyard. Their forefathers told them that they were better than. Their forefathers told them that we are other. So when they see us in organizations with big boy names, or they just see us, when I say big boy names, I mean big boy job titles. Or when they see us just in and amongst them, they think, what are you doing here? What's all this? They hate it with a passion. Do you know how much passion it takes to call somebody uneducated? That they lack communication skills? That their behavior is appalling? What is appalling about my behavior? I've just asked you about a status. That's it. What's the difference between how I emailed? What is it? There was nothing personal. I stuck to the facts. Why would I be personal? I don't even know you. And even if I know you, why would I be personal? This is just a job that's paying. What's up with you? And I'm actually extremely good at my job. What's all this? Human resources will gaslight the hell out of you. And let me tell you HR's position. They do not want a claim against them. Because they have to invest time and money investigating, speaking to external lawyers. Yeah, they go external. Because they know internal lawyers are often biased. So they need an independent, impartial view. That independent lawyer will then charge them for investigating and giving them a recommendation or likelihood of success if it's taken to court. Yeah, they do all of this. I know because when I was consulting for human resources in past roles, these are the things we have to do. So I know exactly what is happening here. Credibility. When they've looked at my credibility, they know. Listen, I know how good I am where I am. If I say to my boss, I'm leaving tomorrow, they won't even allow me. They'll just find me another project, maybe in another team. They won't let go of me. Irrespective if they're paying a premium for me, because I deliver, I'm good at what I do. It is very, very difficult operating in white spaces as black women. It's difficult. Because on one hand, they will hire you because you're a subject matter expert, you're good at what you do. On the other hand, they want you to work with one hand behind their back as they bully and push you around. Bullshit. And I find white men more violent, and I'll tell you the reason why. Because this masculinity, this dominance, they use it like a weapon. Whereas the racist white women will use their tears, which can be considered more dangerous. But I think it's more dangerous when those tears are levied towards black men. White men's violence towards black women equates to those tears. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? The reason I've read my grievance complaint to you is just to show you that I live by what I teach here. I'm going to tell you guys how to do it properly. The reason why I didn't tell them what I was seeking is because I wanted them to ask me. Because it will give me an opportunity to ask them, have you suspended him? Have you done this? Have you done that? If I decide to go down the independent external route, they're in trouble and they know it. But I have to be seen also to be being pragmatic and going through the process. I'm giving him chance. If he does not do as I have requested, I'm going down the formal route. And I'm going to tell you now, human resources are going to warn him seriously to consider what I'm saying, because the other route is not going to be too kind to him because he'll be out of a job. This one has an opportunity to keep him in the job with a blemish record. Yes, you're going to have a blemish record. I put it to you that he's been working for this organization as a perm for a very long time. And this is probably the reason why they didn't suspend him. I'm telling you. Because ordinarily, if you're investigating, why is he not suspended? Remote working does not absolve you from using due process in investigating what I'm saying. After all, I don't know who else he's talking to or who else is discrediting me to. And I said it to them. HR need to understand, I'm not the one, the two, or the three. But I will for sure show up for you if you do bullshit. I'm not doing that. I also want to talk about our credibility, our character. I stand by my character. Because often in white spaces, who you are and your credibility is often what you have. Before you even have an opportunity to demonstrate what you can do, you have to protect your integrity, your credibility, your character. As black women, we work so hard on who we are as people, not to walk into white spaces for them to tear it down and spit and piss all over it. I will defend my name to the high heavens because I've worked hard to maintain my name. I've worked extremely hard. A white man cannot just show up like Clark Kent on a bad day and think that he's going to abuse my character. And why? Because I'm doing my job. And you don't think you should be questioned. And this is the problem. White people underestimate black women. And because they underestimate us, they never see us coming. I put it to you that he never for once thought I would make a grievance complaint. Because if he did, he wouldn't have been as flippant to discredit HR in his tyranny. And I referenced it there. Do you see what I'm saying, what I'm teaching, everything that I'm doing? Do you see the reason why? Because nobody is outside the clutches of the toxicity of often the workplace environment. I know how long I've been doing this. I know how much money I make. I know how senior I am. No matter how high you reach in your career, you still have to deal with this bullshit. Some of you think that the more senior you are, the less politics. That's a lie. It's worse. It's more overt, at least at a junior mid-level. Sometimes it is covert, more often than not. The odd occasions, it's overt. But the more senior you become, the more overt it is. These people are tap dancing one step away from using the N-word. I'm telling you, this man, Ronald McDonald in the pub, he uses the N-word. He's one of those closet racists. I've told you. It's exhausting. But the reason I have to talk about it here is because I know that some of you are on the edge of a grievance. Some of you will just leave. You'll be leaving here. I used to do that in my early years. I would just leave somewhere. Because sometimes it's easier than to deal with the aggro. But the thing is, what's the repercussion? That you never learn actually how to deal with conflict resolution. Number one. You've got so many gaps in your CV. Number two. And number three, you're not actually understanding or allowing yourself to develop the understanding to know how to navigate white spaces. I am as educated, if not more educated than them. For some of them, I speak better than them. I sure as hell write a lot better than some of them. Because I've been studying them. I study racist white people who have made me a victim in workplaces, who have made me go crying into the toilet, who have given me sleepless nights, who have caused me to leave jobs I've learned. Never will I allow it to happen again. It's not going to happen. What will happen is my burn folder. What will happen is my feedback folder. What will happen is my work speaking for itself and my credibility. You see, when it's your word against theirs, it's open to interpretation, how they feel, how they this, how they that. And this is why you need your burn folder. Not every situation is going to be like a Ronald McDonald. Not every situation is going to be like that, where they're stupid enough to create email trail that you just wrap around their legs. Tell me how you're going to get out of this. But let me tell you something. There is nothing worse than racist white men and audacity. Audacity is audacious at the moment. How can you deny? This man will deny. Oh, this is the me. I didn't mean. She was doing this. She was doing what, brother? You've never spoken to me. You don't even know what I sound like. HR were even suggesting a call between me and him. I said no. His disrespect has to be the mode of communication in which he started it. I'm not promoting him to phone conversation. No, it must be in an email. I told them. Don't be afraid to challenge human resources, because 9 times out of 10, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They'll send somebody in to test the temperature. That lady came to test the temperature and she realized that it's not even hot, it's scorching. Don't try me. Do not try me. And you see this that's happening? I'm going to use it as a case study in my book. Yeah. I'm going to use it as a case study in the book. Because it's important to understand that the only way to challenge the system is to understand and know the system in which you're existing in. Some of you don't know the system. That's why you're still having conversations and hoping for the best. That's why you're still relying on reasonableness. Some of these people are not reasonable. You need to understand. If it's a choice between you and them, they're going to choose them. They're not going to choose you. They don't even respect us enough. They don't even respect us enough to even pretend in an email. They don't even. Because they know that the previous people they did it to, they got away with it. So they think, right, we're going to do it here. But he's met his match. Is this exhausting? Yes. Am I tired? Yes. If I had my choice, would I do this? No, why would I? Who openly wants to do it? Then I asked myself, if we was in the office, could this happen? And the answer is probably no. And I tell you why. Because body language, because audience, because I genuinely think that racist white men are scared. They're scared. They're terrified. They are. They're terrified of an audience seeing their nonsense. That's why they do it sometimes in closed spaces. And if they have an audience, it usually is those who support them and think like them. But I have never in my entire career ever been in a situation where somebody has written things down that cannot be argued. I told her I told HR, this is not about interviewing me. It's got nothing to do with me. Interview the emails. I told you guys in the last episode, No Caller ID, the episode before last, that I know that when I did the grievance complaint, there's a target on my back. I 100% know it. But it's a target that I'm willing to have because they know they can't end my contract. They know when it comes to extension time, they've got to give it to me. Otherwise, I will take them on. Are you now victimizing and targeting me because I made a complaint to safeguard my well-being because I was being discriminated against, harassed and bullied? I would listen, I'm not the 1, the 2 or the 3. For sure. There is a level of ruthlessness as black women we have to have when we're pushed too far. You have to be willing to go there. If you want to be successful as a black woman in white spaces, because they are white spaces, you have to be willing to go there. You have to. There's a fearlessness that you need to have. These people will intimidate you. They will ignore you, pretend you don't exist, gaslight you. Because some people don't have, listen, there's some careers that are so niche. Some people do not have the luxury of jumping from job to job. Equally, some people realise or have experience of raising complaints and then being pushed out of a job. Then you have to be thinking ahead. I'm already thinking ahead. I'm already having conversations. I ain't stupid. But what I'm not going to do is have somebody force me out before I'm ready to go. That's number one. This came from nowhere. This was all in a day. Oh, sorry, across 2 days. How? And I really put it down to the pandemic remote working. I do. Because I think that remote working has desensitized people into thinking that the rules of professionalism do not apply to them. And I think him resorting to emails is evidence of the whole remote working, in that is how we've all been communicating. But what he's not realising is in doing that, he's given me evidence to place into my burn folder. Use your burn folders, please. I've told you how to use them. I've spoken about it in previous episodes. Closet racists are not always people who stand there and use the N-word or tell you this or say this. It's your treatment. You can see that in my grievance complaint, I use the comparator. Sarah is my comparator. Of course she is my comparator. She's a woman. And she's my comparator because we are working in the same organisation, near enough same type of roles. Why is it that he speaks to her, somebody who's never spoken to, with professionalism, but when he speaks about me, it's derogatory. But all you know is that I'm a woman and I'm an ethnic minority. And I hate the word ethnic minority, but for the purposes of this conversation, you know what I'm saying. How many closet racists do you have in your workplace, please? Have you done your due diligence? Do you see it for what it is? How have you safeguarded yourself against that closet racist? Because sometimes, listen, sometimes you won't necessarily have to use it. You have to wait for them to strike. And know that some of them get bored, they'll strike. Honestly, my life is like a reality show, and I have to believe that all these things, everything that I go through from my past to the very present day, is God actively using me as a vessel to teach. I have to believe that, because this is wild. I mean, what are the odds? Black activist that has a platform for black women where I teach and educate black women how to navigate the world of work successfully, happens to be experience all this stuff. This is wild. It's the gift that keeps on giving, but a girl is tired, honey. But I understand that I will never be given more than I can handle, and I'll always have the tools to be able to navigate whatever it is that is happening. Equally, I do give thanks. I give thanks for education, enlightenment. Oh, enlightenment. I give thanks and gratitude. Ignorance is so dangerous in white spaces where white people are not as ignorant as they make out. It's like when I said to you guys, it's like when you go to battle. When you watch these like medieval programs or whatever it is, and they're going to war, they'll go, you know, like say like Game of Thrones, they're going to war. They'll go to the top of the hill, they'll use their binoculars, they'll be looking. They rest, they'll be there. 40 days, 40 nights, they'll be there. They don't go there and say, hey, hi, enemy, just to let you know, yeah, right, we've got a cannon here that we're gonna blow you lot off. They don't. They use their binoculars, they'll be looking, they'll be waiting, they'll be observant, patient. And then when they go to war, they make sure they have the advantage before they go to war. And then they obliterate everybody. This is why I don't like going to war. But if I'm going to go with my briefcase fully packed with evidence. Don't try it. There are some people that is their clear purpose, to make it intolerable for people to work. These micromanagers, they've been missing the office bad. But in fact, when it was time for vaccine, they even asked for the booster at the same time because they knew they wanted to go and live in that office to make up for the year that they missed. This is who we are dealing with. It's exhausting to think that in 2021, the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, we are still talking about topics like this. It is exhausting. Because you would think by now organisations realise that actually the way they've been carrying on, it's not sustainable, because no one's willing to allow it. We have access to social media. We have platforms like the Toy Talks podcast. We're educated. We're educating ourselves. We are understanding the dynamics of the workplace, and equally, we are understanding what our power is. As Black women, do you know how powerful we are? We're extremely powerful because we are underestimated. So they don't assume for a moment that we have any awareness. They rely on ignorance, because ignorance has been what has allowed them to continue their harmful behaviour and harmful acts. You think I'm not aware that this situation with Ronald McDonald has caused some form of trauma? Of course it has. Because at the end of the day, it's still somebody feeling comfortable enough to discredit me in a way that's so derogatory and uncomfortable, that somebody has placed me in a situation where I have to address it. I have to deep dive what bullying is and what victimisation is, to firmly hone into the point that this is unacceptable behaviour, knowing full well that human resources will not back me. They will not support me. Yeah, they've got a duty of care. They ask you, oh, how are you doing? I was so worried that you sent your email at 11. You were so worried, but you haven't suspended the perpetrator that has caused me the anxiety. You haven't suspended him. You don't know if he's sending me flipping IM messages. You don't give a shit. The only people at work that care about you is you. You have to cover yourself. And I get all that camaraderie. Oh, my colleague this, my colleague that. Half of these colleagues that you think that you are best mates with, when you ask them now to come and testify of your character and how great you are and how supportive you've been, they'll start telling you, I don't want to get involved. Believe me, been there. My 20s was a baptism of almighty fire. And I realise now that as it currently stands, my success in the world of work has actually come from those experiences where I made assumptions that we were in it together, and realising I was in it on my own. It's tough, man. It's tough and often lonely. Let's be honest. Even if you have other Black people that you work with, it's lonely if they refuse to accept or see what you're seeing. Because I think there are a lot of Black people who are in denial. They are. They're in denial because to actually admit what they experience or the environment they work in is too much, because then if they feel responsible to have to do something. And some people are happy to walk in ignorance. But how long are you walking in ignorance for? Until you're in a job for 10 years with no promotion. Until you're in a job for 10 years and no one's supported any further education for you. You're in a job for 10 years and you're the first person that they put up for a restructure or redundancy, even though you've given your life to an organisation. I can't give my life to any organisation because no organisation has given its life to me. And even if it does, it's not my father's business. Sorry. No. At the same time, I think character goes a long way. Integrity goes a long way. And being able to put your hand on your heart and say, do you know what? I've been professional in the delivery of my duties in this role. And anything outside of that is not my business. That's my attitude. I'm a consultant after all. I know some of you are probably thinking, Toya, was you not worried to kind of send a grievance complaint knowing that you're a consultant and they could get rid of you? No, I wasn't. Because there is something empowering about being a consultant that being a perm I wouldn't get. And it's the idea that I'm autonomous in the decisions I make, right? Because I work for myself. I think that when you are a perm employee, there is this unspoken loyalty that you're expected to have. And there is this lack of, I think there's a lack of support because there is an expectation when you're perm that there is going to be a support that exists for you. Whereas I think as a consultant, you just see things holistically. And I'm very aware of the benefits of being a consultant insofar as you're not emotionally invested. Now, I've been here longer than most contracts, but I'm not emotionally invested enough to think that anyone owes me anything or that they would pick me over this guy. When I say pick me, for example, if I was perm, they probably would have suspended him. But because I'm a consultant, that's why they haven't done it. I'm not stupid. But equally, I've raised a grievance now. It's in writing. So then their next move is vital. Vital. you know. That being said, I'm hoping that this episode touches somebody, and I'm hoping that you understand what I'm trying to teach in this episode. That nobody is above going through situations like this. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, if I do this, if I earn this much, if I'm in this pay bracket, I'm less likely to have to deal with this. I think as black women, we will have to deal with this until racism is completely stamped out. And I personally don't think that it ever will be, because white people are too invested in protecting racism for their own benefit. I think that organisations are performative, because what they will do is Black History Month, you will hear them up and down, up and down, up and down. You'll see all the fists of Black Lives Matter. But when it's time to use their fists to safeguard our mental health and safeguard us against racism, it just falls silent. I read something the other day on Instagram, and I saved it so I could read it to you guys. So there's a black man, and he sued his employer for racial discrimination and settled the lawsuit and took the settlement check. So they paid him out. So he took the settlement check to the bank to cash it. And the bank didn't believe that the check was real, and then they called the police on him. And that led him to another racial discrimination suit against the bank. Racial discrimination doesn't just happen in the world of work. It happens in all different areas of our life. And you guys know I'm vlogging, and I'm doing retrospective vlogging. And what I mean by that is I'm recording now for it to go live from November. So you will basically be seeing August, September, October weekly in November. And I will continue to record, because there's so many things that are happening in my life, so many things happening that I haven't shared in my personal life. And I'm basically giving you guys an all access pass to my life, how I live, in terms of my business, how my day-to-day looks, like me doing public speaking events. I'm going to take you guys on public speaking events. You're going to see different parts of my life that I don't always share on social media, and the racism that I've encountered as part of being a black woman living in a society that continues to protect racism. And I think it's important that you guys see different facets of my life as well, so that you have a well-rounded view and picture about how I live in my black skin and my black body and just life in general. Because I definitely think that, you know, it's important that we're able to share and identify certain things that we all experience, because I think we live in a society that is committed to isolating us. It's no surprise that Ronald McDonald sent me a personal email like that, because that's how society isolates us and makes us think it's just us. And if anything that I have shown or proven to myself, especially during the creation of the podcast, is how all of us are united in our experiences. And it is they're often sad experiences, but we are all united, and therefore that should be reassurance enough that it's not in our heads, that this is very real. And work life shouldn't be a battle. It actually shouldn't. And it becomes a battle when we don't accept crumbs. If you are willing to accept the crumbs that society often flings our way, then you're never going to have an issue. What you will have is some bumps in the roads, but the bumps in the roads will be to almost remind you that we're othered. But if you are looking to be successful, grow, climb the ladder in your career now, there are going to be issues, because what you're now doing is breaking a ceiling that white people have put there in order to keep us where we are. I want to reiterate something, and I've said it on Instagram, and I need to say it here. The Toya Talks podcast is not just for people in the corporate world. I am no longer in the corporate world. It's for black women in the working world. Let's not differentiate between corporate world and whatever world, okay? That I find very annoying, because again, it's structures that white people have created to separate us, to make us believe that your experiences are different if you work in the corporate world, if you work in the private sector, public sector, third sector, charity sector, and that's not true. They're just different environments, but it's all the same. And a different environment, different fields, but it's all the same. Don't allow society to gaslight you into thinking that if you are in one sector over another, you're less likely to experience something, because as we are black women, we are going to experience these things. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And it doesn't just start in the world of work. It often starts at the education system, where they put us into different groups and they group us, or they label us. That's where it starts. When I was growing up, and I say it in the book, my first example of white people, white spaces, were for your teachers. And these teachers had this unfettered power to basically tell you what set you're going to be in. I was put in the wrong set for English. For English, I was put in the bottom set for years. And one teacher, she couldn't understand it. Supply teacher. She just didn't get it. Long story short, I was in the top set. I ended up taking my GCSEs in the top set. Because in English literature and English language, I was really, really good at. And remember, at that point, they didn't know I was dyslexic. We didn't identify that until I was at university. But the reason why they categorised me as being in the lower set was clearly because I was a black girl and from an underprivileged background, what they considered underprivileged, because there was no black girls in the top set, none whatsoever. It was a supply teacher that couldn't understand it because she read my work and stuff, and she was standing in for my regular teacher who was off. Like, I think she had like long-term sickness and then didn't even eventually come back. So if it wasn't for that teacher actually recognising I was in the wrong set, what would have happened, I would have stayed in that set. And then the thing is, when you're in a lower set, the highest you could get is like a C or a D in the lower set. So I could be producing A-star work, but the classification of sets would mean that my grade would be lower. And this is how society seeks to differentiate and keep us ceiling level. And this is why I say to you that it's so important that this platform exists, because all we've ever known are ceilings until we now are a bit more enlightened and educated in the ways of racist white structures, that we start to break and tear those ceilings down. But no one can want more for you than you. You have to want more for yourself than other people want for you. You have to know there's something more. I was speaking to my partner about how society continues to limit us in our thinking. You know, on one hand, they talk about Black Lives Matter, but on the other hand, you have somebody like Piers Morgan being investigated by Ofcom for his behaviour, which is rooted in my opinion, in racism, being told that he's done nothing wrong. So society will gaslight you into thinking actually maybe you were overthinking it. Or when you know you're being racially discriminated against and you raise it, they say, oh, you're playing the race card. Well, I'm sorry, but you created the race card for us to play. And it's not play. Our life is not a game. Imagine white people get offended when you accuse them of racism. But are we not offended by being on the other end and receiving that racism? Is there no consideration for that? Why are we always mollycoddling racist white people? Not me. I ain't got time. Ronald will say he's going through something. He will say his cat was vomiting a fur ball, and this is the reason why his behaviour. There's always an excuse for racist behaviour, in their minds anyway. There's no excuse in my mind. There's always an excuse for them. But there's never any consideration of the people who are on the receiving end of discrimination of any kind. And I'm sick of it. I'm done. I'm actually done. You know what Ronald has reaffirmed to me? That number one, as much as I love my career, there is going to be a transition point where I solely dedicate myself to all things Toy Talks, and that will be the primary focus of what I do. The podcast, the content creation that I'm doing, that will be it. Because I think that I am at a stage now where, in as much as I love what I do for a living, I am a consultant, I earn a premium, but there is a shift coming in my life and I need to dedicate it solely to what we're doing here, because I know this platform has changed and is changing lives. And whilst I am grateful for everything that I've learned over the last few years, and especially during this contract, there comes a point where you have to think to yourself, how long before you make that transition into fully focusing on my business? And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to keep you guys updated with what's happening in terms of HR and the decision that Ronald makes. Either he's going to adhere to what I've requested or he's not, right? And Audacity is audaciously at an all-time high. So I'll fill you in. I'll give you a brief update in the beginning of next week's episode. Also, as well, I know that there are so many topics that I still have to cover as part of the podcast, and I have done a couple of treatments for a few episodes that I've got coming. There is going to be more of a relationship type of episode next week. I definitely feel ready to talk about a couple of things that I think that needs to be spoken about, and as Black women that we don't tend to talk about it, or at least in the way I think is beneficial to us. So I'm going to talk about it next week. And I'm just going to thank each and every one of you, really, because the support that I've received, the downloads have increased. There has been new people who have discovered the podcast, and that is just amazing, because the more people who are aware and educated about our rights and understanding the system and how we navigate that system, is the more likely that we are continuing to break the ceiling to be successful and light up the path of our success. If you want to follow me on social media, then my personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks podcast Instagram page is Toya_Talks. You can, of course, follow me on TikTok, which we're not serious on TikTok, we're just doing vibes. My handle is Toya Washington, which is all one word. If you want to follow me on Snapchat, it is Toya Washington, all one word. On Twitter, it's Toya_W with the hashtag Toya Talks Podcast or Toya Talks. If you have a work-related dilemma, then make sure you email me, hello@toyatalks.com. Please do not DM me your dilemma. Honestly, I'm trying to keep up with everything, and I'm less likely to miss it if you email me. So just email hello@toyatalks.com. If you're interested in purchasing a masterclass, then all the masterclasses are amazing. Honestly, the feedback is amazing. I know they're amazing because I've poured a lot into them. Go ahead and check it out on my website, toyatalks.com. I'm having a lot of inquiries and a lot of bookings for obviously Black History Month, and going in and talking about racial discrimination and equality and racial awareness training as well. So if you are interested, or you've got an organisation who want to book me, then email hello@toyatalks.com. I do have a tab within my website that references public speaking as well, so go ahead on the website and have a look. And I'm really busy this October. Obviously, October's Black History Month for us in the UK, but also it's my birthday month. Yes, I am a Libran, forever seeking balance in my life. So yeah, I'm excited. And there's so many things happening. Obviously, I'm vlogging, and I'm really, really, really enjoying vlogging. Honestly, I love it. And I think it's because I don't feel pressure. I'm doing it retrospectively, and I know the content is what you guys are going to love. You're going to learn, and you're going to laugh, hopefully, as well. And there's going to be some, oh my God, moments as well, which I can't wait for. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I'm missing or leaving out. I think I've covered everything. Oh no, how can we draw it to a close without talking about Toya Plugged Me? So as you know, every month I talk about 2 Black owned brands, which I think are amazing, and I want to put you guys on, and you guys know I put you on to great brands and great products. So the first brand and product is called The Do. The Do is owned by a Black female. She is American, and they have a hairline. She has a hairline, sorry. And the hairline is called The Do. So all my natural hair queens, please go and purchase the mousse. The mousse I love. They do like have the gel and stuff, and it just works amazing in my hair. I have quite curly hair, and I do know that my hair sometimes often needs manipulating, and the products are amazing. I buy the Do products from naturalisticproducts.co.uk or Keo Beauty or Keo Beauty. The Do is spelled THEDOUX, and they also have an Instagram page, and the Black queen that owns this company is absolutely beautiful and really passionate about natural hair and the natural hair journey. The second company is Makeup Brushes, and it's by a fellow Black queen, and her name is Joy Adenuga. Her makeup brushes are the truth. I've purchased them, I swear by them, I love them. Glides on your face, such great quality. Her name is Joy Adenuga, spelled Adenuga, and obviously she's an Igbo queen like me. But make sure you go check her out. Check out her Instagram page. Her makeup brushes are absolutely amazing. So those 2 companies are The Do and Joy Adenuga makeup brushes, and hashtag Toya Plugged Me. Right, I'm going to draw it to a close. I'm definitely going to see you guys next week for a brand new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. If you know of anybody who you think that needs advice, guidance, or just needs to be made aware that this podcast is here for them, then please recommend the Toy Talks podcast, recommend the website. Also as well, I am going to encourage you all to keep a lookout on my social media handle, because I have something very special. I've got a couple of special things coming this Black History Month. And you know me, limited edition, and if you miss it, you miss out. That's the only clue you're getting. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. See you all next week, and thank you for all your support, all your love. Keep shining, and keep learning, and keep being open to learning. And I just want you all to know that this is a safe space. So if you do have a dilemma, if you do feel like you need some advice on the Toy Talks platform and podcast, then make sure you write into hello@toytalks.com. Wishing you all a great week, whatever day you decide to listen to this. Wishing you a great day, and I'll see you all next week for a brand new episode. And my name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.